G'day guys, I sat down with Gerard Beckerleg. He's pretty religious on Scrum, so I decided to ask him a few questions about what are the things that he sees are the pitfalls in the Scrum process. Check it out. So tell me a dysfunction in Scrum that you noticed, the biggest one.
Okay, so the biggest one for me is probably teams taking on extra tasks mid-sprint.
Okay, what happens?
Yeah, so it's a very common thing for a team that's new to Scrum to start a sprint and agree to a sprint backlog with say 3-4 tasks on it, and then midway through the sprint the product owner comes to them and says, I really want this feature. And Scrum teams that are new to Scrum will generally say, oh yeah, no problem, and include it in their current sprint. And
okay.
That normally leads to big problems.
Right, cool. And so what should they say?
What should they say? Well, they should say to the product owner, yeah, we can add that to the product backlog, and in the next sprint we can include the next sprint review. We can include that in the next sprint.
But I really want in this sprint.
Yeah, and that's what the product owner will normally say. So you can then turn around to your product owner and say, yeah, well, we can include it in this sprint, but the problem is that you're probably going to lose some of the other items that you've asked for, and possibly you might affect all the planning that we've already done in the sprint planning meeting.
Okay, is that good enough to scare them off doing it?
Yeah, normally. I'd say 9 times out of 10 they'll probably say, yeah, we'll include it in the next sprint.
All right. So tell me another dysfunction that you've noticed.
Another big dysfunction is teams that are not clear with the acceptance criteria for user stories.
Okay, so what do you want in your acceptance criteria in a PBI?
Well, it needs to be something clear that lets everybody know when that piece of work is considered done. So, for example, if you were to build something like a new homepage, then the acceptance criteria might be that it had a navigation bar across the top with these items in it, a sidebar with these items, and then maybe 2 areas, a content area and a advertisement area or something like that.
Okay. So could you give me a third dysfunction?
A third dysfunction? Yeah, probably the daily stand-up. Actually, this is probably one of the most common ones as well. So it's common for teams new to Scrum to start the daily stand-ups, and after a while they go from being quick 10-minute synchronization meetings, which is what they should be, to being 30, 40, 50-minute long, almost planning meetings.
And how do you solve this?
Okay, so one of the a good way to solve this is to create something called a parking lot. So with the daily stand-up, you're meant to answer 3 questions. So what I did yesterday, what I'm doing today, and any impediments. So if anybody starts to talk about anything that doesn't answer those 3 questions, then it can be put into an area called the parking lot, which is just maybe a whiteboard, and that you just write these problems on the whiteboard, and then anyone who's interested after the meeting can stay around and talk about these issues in the parking lot.
Okay, so it's a little bit like when you present, you close it off and say you're done. If you want to hang around for questions, you can hang around. It gives everyone permission to leave.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so can I throw my own dysfunction in?
Okay, go on.
This is my favourite, but I don't know if you'll agree. Teams not preparing how they're going to present their PBIs for the sprint review. Do you notice that?
Oh yes, yeah, that's very important, because sometimes with some teams, the sprint review is the only time you get to see the product owner. So as far as they're concerned, they haven't seen any of the sweat and tears that you've had during the previous week, 2 weeks, and that's an important time for you to sell yourself as a team to the product owner. Say, look, this is what we did, be really enthusiastic about it, show them everything that you've done, and hopefully they'll be happy.
Okay, so can I throw a curveball at you for the last question? If your current project that you're doing goes south, or you have some dysfunction in it, what are you expecting on this project will be your pain points?
Okay, so we have a big project coming up at the moment, and pain points. Okay, so it's very important for this project's going to involve a lot of integration with third-party services, so GPS services and things like that. So it's going to be very difficult to test. So we're going to have to use a lot of mock tests to mock these services. So that's going to be a big pain point for us.
Okay.
Is testing.
All right. Well, I look forward to catching up with you in a couple of months and seeing if your prediction was right. So with that, this is Adam Cogan signing off. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. I found the comments about the product owner the most interesting for me, but I'm interested to know what you guys thought were the most interesting for you. So put a comment there and like the video. Even better, subscribe to it on YouTube. Cheers.